Moving on through the Mesh menu entries, the next unexplored entry we come to is Knife Project. Perhaps surprisingly, this operation is not included in the toolbar's knife option. If you've ever made a hand shadow on a wall, then you'll know exactly how this tool works. It projects the border of one shape, we'll call this one the cutter, onto the surface of a target object, and then creates new edges on the target that match the cutter's outline. For example, let's start by creating a plane, and then add a circle. We'll shrink the circle and move it up, away from the plane. Next, we'll change to top view in orthogonal projection, so we are looking down on the two shapes. To cut the outline of the circle onto the plane, we start by selecting the plane and entering Edit mode. Now we hold down the Control key and click on the circle. This defines the circle as the cutter. Finally, we select Knife Project from the Mesh menu. This cuts the outline of the circle onto the plane and adds any additional edges required to retain the viability of the target's geometry. Now we can make use of the additional geometry in the plane to perform other operations such as extrude or delete. The projection of the cutter onto the target depends on our viewpoint, so if we were to redo the process from a different viewpoint, the cuts made to the target object would change. For example, here we can see that only part of the circle is cut into the plane. The cutter must be non-manifold, which is to say, it must have boundaries and not be an enclosed mesh. So, if we were to try and use a UV sphere as the cutter, the operation would fail. But if we remove half of the sphere and thereby give it a border, the operation will succeed. But unlike the cutter object, the target object's shape is not restricted. For example, we can cut into the surface of a cone. Notice that the cut only appears on the visible side of the 3D shape. When we project onto a 3D object, we can use the Last Op panel's only option labeled Cut Through. By checking this option, the cut will also appear on the hidden side of the cone. We could then easily create a hole in the cone by selecting the faces within the cut areas and using the bridging option.